Namaste, assalamu alaikum, shalom, buenos dias, ni hao, no esqueno. Hisache, Aquaba, welcoming, what up, though? This is the weekly meeting of William Kvitkik, the Global Federation of Villages, and I have some notes to prepare. The hour is 12:48. Greenwich Mean Zone. On the day numero dos of month numero tres of year numero 123 after the commencement of the Parliament of the World's Religions, year 71 after the founding of the United Nations, day cinco of the week, and day doce of the new moon. And this weekly meeting of our WOWIM Kavit our Global Federation of Villages, is called to order. And we begin with a blessing. May all beings be well. We continue with the recitation of our mantra from the preamble of our compact. We, the sentient beings of our global federation of villages, our Wowium Kibitke, our global federation of villages, observe the antiquated institutions and systems facilitating convention, and we believe we can do better. We recognize the historic and contemporary harm we cause each other, and we are dedicated to do better. We are dedicated to reconciliation. The wisdom of our ancestors, prophets, and sages tells us we do better by exercising compassion towards each other and all life. This begins by fundamentally respecting all beings, all life, all phenomena. And this continues through enhancing the wellness of all beings and all life, steadfastly as universal citizens. We are better learning that when we do this, we also enhance our own respective individual wellness. Thus, we reconstruct our institutions and systems to be proficiently compassionate and transcendent. This includes our institutions and systems of religion, government, education, health, finance, commerce, socialization, and additionally. We fundamentally challenge previous precepts, theories, laws, and methodologies of selfishness. We declare a new age of compassion. And whilst our new institutions and systems supplant the antiquated institutions and systems, we facilitate this process with maximum peace, humility, stability, efficiency, and compassion. We practice Welt ethos. We practice Welt ethos, including Ahimsa, Ubuntu, Veritas, Haya, Shu, Maka, Huga, Samadhi, Shema, Shabono, Narab. The preceding text is provided for this purpose. Love and peace. Attendance. Peter Johansson OCC is on the books. There are 0 official viewers. There's an absence of emergency or urgent propositions. Minutes from the previous meeting. So the previous meeting was convened a week ago. And it is convened. It is called order at 6 hour, 9 minute, Greenwich Mean Zone on day 24 of month 2 of year 123 after the commencement of the Parliament of the World's Religions, year 71 after the founding of the United Nations, day 5 of the week, and day 5 of the new moon. Blessings recited, mantra recited. Peter Johansson OCC is on the books for attendance with 0 official viewers, absence of emergency or urgent propositions. Minutes are read, agenda is read. There's a point of order regarding the Greenwich Mean Zone clarification. Committee reports include Welt Ethos Trust Compact Administration, mentioning the continuing formation and tasks of such committees or administration along the lines of Welt Ethos. I mentioned, I refer to the Israeli Jiu-Jitsu Brasileiro Ahimsa methodology. I mentioned also the notion of including the term jihadi in this as well. I reference consular immunity as well as the Welt Ethos orientation. So there's that. For Gift Cove committee report, I mentioned the development of the Plurality platform for Gift Cove and the continuing intention with the Fair Trade for Monks communication, as well as reaching out to co-ops and enhancing the international distribution infrastructure of particularly fair trade, but including fair trade, vegan, organic, and kosher halal products. And then local village outreach committee. I referenced again the agenda communication and the continuing intention with that, as well as continuing rapprochement with Amnesty International. So there's an absence of old business. There's an absence of new business. Mega update. I mentioned the completion of if I recall correctly, completion of some compositions honoring our ancestors, as well as continuing rapprochement with intergovernmental organizations with MEGA, the multi, what's it, and then as well as the continuing uh, endeavors with the global mixed consensus, as well as the International Declaration on the Rights of Mixed People, and the upcoming Mixed Remixed conference or festival in a few months. Local village briefs for our UNI village. I mentioned a recent shooting, at least shots being fired. I intervened within a cat fight in the preceding week, and then I described some anecdotes regarding interactions and relationship with fellow villagers. So announcements are recited. Benevolent news. I recite River Stream's World Ethos chant as well as the World Peace Prayer song. The next meeting is scheduled for today at 12 hour Greenwich Mean Zone. Benediction is recited and the meeting is adjourned at hour 7 minute 8 Greenwich Mean Zone, which makes it about an hour long. So those are the minutes from the previous meeting. Agenda for today. Committee reports. There's updates regarding World Ethos Trust Compact, particularly the Israeli Brasileiro Ahimsa jihadi methodology. There's a significant amount to communicate regarding Gift Cove. And then there's some updates regarding local village outreach. There's updates regarding MEGA, particularly regarding intergovernmental rapprochement and honoring our ancestors. And that's for the MEGA update. For the local village briefs, there's some updates to share with our UNI village. There are announcements. Benevolent News is here, and next meeting is scheduled. The benediction is on the agenda as well as adjournment. So, that being communicated, we go into committee reports. So the first committee report is Wealth Ethos Trust Compact Administration. Again, it's still formation, tasks, identifying what the administrations are specifically, and what the tasks are for each administrative entity according to the respective principles of Wealth Ethos, according to the rendering of Osona Ashram. In terms of the Israeli Jiu-Jitsu Brasileiro Ahimsa Jihadi endeavor or methodology, I actually I send a call out or a communication out to a local Jiu-Jitsu training facility, and a few weeks ago, probably over a month ago, and the trainer, the jiu-jitsu, I'm uncertain if his title is a master or sensei or what the specific title is, but the person who leads that school contacts me back, and we talked earlier this week. He communicates the terms that he solicits for his training to travel here to our UNI village and conduct training sessions. It's along the lines of a first year lawyer. The rates of his terms or the hourly rate that he solicits. He also mentions the necessity of requiring obviously a space, and that's something I mentioned we're in the process of arranging. He also mentions the necessity of mats and an estimated cost of mats. His recommendation is to simply, in the short term, at least, to gather interested individuals and make the trip to his school, which is located a few miles down the road. However, transportation being the concern. I describe the intention as essentially a support group, particularly a men's support group that deals with different topics of, well, along the lines of wealth ethos. I abstain from utilizing the term specifically wealth ethos. It's a matter of gradually introducing new concepts to people. Um, so I mentioned this as the intention as a men's support group. I mentioned having around a half a dozen uh, interested participants, and so yeah, so that's where the conversation stands. We conclude our conversation kind of open ended, and with the intention of me following up amidst for additional details of making arrangements um, to essentially meet his solicitation, or his demands. That's a strong word, or somewhat inaccurate, but um, to meet his terms. So from that conversation, I actually forwarded communication to a local house of worship that is located here in our UNI village, with whom I am in previous communication, and about the utilization of the space. I sent an email. Again, earlier in the week, there has yet to be a direct response. So that's where things stand in terms of that endeavor. So consular immunity, there's little to update, and then wealth ethos orientation. Still interest, however, amidst the absence of explicit demand for such, there's little availability of myself to approach entities and um, introduce, promote, solicit, propose such a program at the moment. So there's amenability for it. However, without uh, without an agency or organization or individual approaching here and soliciting such, it's less of a priority. It's on the back burner. So there's that, and that is the Wealth Ethos Trust Compact Administration Committee update regarding gift code. This is probably the biggest thing to share in this meeting today. Gift Cove, the Plurity platform. I do make some updates. I continue to do so on the Gift Cove, particularly just sharing links for our respective regions. So that is there. My intention is to conduct some additional updates on links and information, and then complete the fair trade for monks communication, and that's the next item on this committee's agenda for this meeting. So for the fair trade for monks, I actually began researching and identifying houses or monasteries and houses of worship within our respective locations, and contact information as well. And so it's a little bit longer than what I anticipate, or at least I'm saying from actually anticipating significantly at the previously, but it's taking a little bit. So it's a work in progress. God willing, it will be done before the next meeting. So there's that. In terms of the international distribution infrastructure, and how Gift Cove facilitates and contributes to that. That is also continuing to develop, and that's what the next item is, which is the Gift Cove endeavor, quote unquote, the formal endeavor. So, since the previous meeting, there emerges an increasing intention for emphasizing Gift Cove even as an effective standalone platform through which to conduct transactions, fair trade, vegan, organic, kosher, halal transactions of such products. exclusively such products. So this is the bulk of the meeting at this point. So my intention at this point is to explain what the concept is at the moment, and what the general methodology is for progressing. So hey, and I actually abstain from like preparing specifically to do such. So we're just kind of going off rip. So basically, after the meeting a week ago, I kind of brainstormed about this concept, and identifies a certain basic, at least a conceptual outline for this endeavor. So basically, the idea is having a platform that has essentially a few different components. Uno component is a marketplace where people can acquire, essentially purchase fair trade, kosher, halal, organic, vegan products exclusively, whereby, oh yeah, and zero money. All the purchasing is conducted through credits. It's effectively an alternative currency. So the marketplace is basically it's similar to other big or similar online retailers, where the retailer offers is essentially a store where it offers different products from different suppliers, growers, suppliers. Additionally, the distinction of this endeavor being that all of these products are fair trade, kosher, halal, organic, and vegan. So even if the supplier abstains from exclusively of being dedicated exclusively to such products, as long as it provides those products that meet those qualifications, then those products can be included within the marketplace. So people can visit the platform and complete a transaction via that platform directly, and in a very simplistic manner. But like I said, only with the credits, the Gift Cove credits. So zero money. So that's one component. That's one component of the platform. Another component is a forum, an activist forum on different fronts, from social justice, fair trade, ethnic harmony, interfaith, environmentalism, veganism, human rights, and additionally, I think I begin by saying social justice. So the idea is providing a forum, a collective forum, with even sub is a with distinct discussion groups, or I have to think of the terminology whilst being PC and everything else. The social networking platform of Gift Cove, in addition to the marketplace, having a distinct component that has multiple fora, I should say, for activists dedicated to different fronts, and each of those fora can focus on different issues. Again, the schematics have yet to be discerned necessarily. However, the basic intention is just to have an aggregate forum where these specific activist fronts are communicating on the specific issues to those fronts, the respective issues to those fronts, yet also in immediate proximity with each other, so that it's easy to visit and see what's happening on other fronts, refer to the other fronts, refer to the people in the other fronts, and make connections along those concentrations, but as well as geographically as well. So that's the general intention, and also connecting it with the ethic-based consumption in the manner we sustain ourselves at the marketplace. So there's that connectivity. So that's this component numero dos. Component numero tres is an artist offering, an offering from an artist collective, where artists share music, films, and other projects, everything that artists do without being contrite or condescending. It just there's so many things, so many terms that can be described, can be utilized to describe the different works that artists provide: poetry, short film, documentary, vlogging, um, and additionally music, and additionally artistry, painting, spoken word, theater, additionally. So all of that having a component within the aggregate platform, for artist expression from our different locations from throughout the from throughout the earth, emphasizing particularly local artists, and local artists that have some type of message, some type of uplifting, conscientious message, that coincides with the general theme of our Gift Cove marketplace platform. So that's the component numero tres. And with that, well, I'll get into the methodology a little bit in a minute. So the fourth component is, I'm going to write this down because it's absent. So the fourth component of this platform is a truth and reconciliation platform. And so basically, the purpose of this component is to facilitate the same type of healing, effectively, amongst our respective communities and amongst our individual selves, our families, our communities, our villages, our friendships, additionally. Having a truth and reconciliation component specifically dedicated to that. What does that look like? Well, first of all, one idea with this is having something referred to as an apology institute, which basically is a database where people can post apologies in a private manner or a public manner, according to certain protocols. But individuals can post apologies, particularly towards other individuals with whom the apology individuals have difficulty connecting or contacting. So it's kind of like you did something wrong to somebody, and it's weighing on your mind. Maybe it's years later, and you're uncertain how to contact that person, and you want to make amends, but it's rather difficult. Maybe it's awkward. Maybe it involves calling other people and people asking, well, why do you want to talk to that person? Or that person is da da da. So it's difficult. So amidst that, there's this consideration of posting an apology, and putting it in a database with due privacy protocols and procedures in place, but posting that apology, and again, according to appropriate privacy procedures, it may be a very detailed apology. It may be a very general apology, but just putting it out there, and then completing a certain, basically, like the password questions that people ask. So in completing the entry into the database, completing a certain questions, or typing certain questions and putting in the answer, such that only the person who should receive the apology knows effectively. So obviously, it's other than a foolproof type of endeavor, and it's also appropriate to get beyond the whole notion of foolproof, and the facade and the illusion of privacy and secrecy. Yes, it's pragmatic. Yes, it's part of social norms. However, there's also something that goes beyond secrecy and privacy, and so it's a matter of weighing. Cultural norms to identify an appropriate consensus through which to facilitate such a database. So with the consideration of having mechanisms for removal of apologies if the recipient is disturbed or something by that by the individual's posting. So again, having due protocols in place to account for the different preferences and guidance within our respective traditions, cultures, and personal constitutions. So that's cool. Yeah, nails nasty. That is component numero cuatro of the Gift Cove platform. So those are the main components. So how does it work? Again, all the transactions are conducted via on the Gift Cove marketplace are conducted with alternative currency. Well, I mean, throughout the whole endeavor is all alternative currency, Gift Cove credits essentially. And the Gift Cove credit value is basically based on the same type of concept of previous credit alternative currency that are involved with additional endeavors within which I am involved. Basically, one co-op credit is valued at 1 kilogram of a composite of grains, cereals is another way of referring to it. So that's the basic rendering. So it's other than even attached to there's an absence of an exchange rate for conventional currency. It's pegged to a kilo of grain, and it has tangibility, but it also has certain generality intentionally to abstain from being equated officially to any valuation of conventional currency. So one of the reasons again is to have the tangibility to have some connection to the earth, rather than the effective abstraction upon which much of the current conventional government currencies are based. And so having a tangibility, and with that tangibility, having a better understanding of what is actually fair when it comes to a price for products and services and what people deserve to have. So before, rather than getting into the whole spiel about the philosophy and approach and methodology and premise of the currency, I'll just leave it at that. All transactions are through the Gift Cove credits. The methodology is to approach suppliers, communicate the intention of this endeavor, and encourage suppliers to agree to participate for a certain period, effectively a year, completing a year contract or year agreement, a uno year agreement, wherein the suppliers agree to provide a minimum of a certain amount of co-op credits or Gift Cove credits, or excuse me, wherein the suppliers, whether it's the growers, whether it's other retailers, whether it's wholesalers, distributors, or otherwise, the suppliers agree to provide a certain number of products. I say it increasingly accurately. The suppliers agree to provide a minimum of products valued at a certain minimum amount. So basically just a certain amount, so maybe 100 credits worth of of a certain product, or an offering of products at a certain level, and then also having a quota or a maximum as well, so that the supplier, there's an absence of taking advantage of the suppliers in with this new currency or with this new, yeah, alternative currency. So having a basic minimum and a maximum on a monthly basis, and that also provides certain motivation for people to access the agreed upon or the available products from the suppliers whilst it's still in available for that month before others. So that's a little bit of market behavior, whatever. But there's that intrinsic incentive. So, anyways, a basic minimum and a basic maximum. So, encouraging suppliers to agree to participate for uno year at least, thereabouts. With those, that also includes working with web programmers, organizations that host websites. And my technical prowess there is comparatively modest. So, but making all the technical arrangements for hosting the website, the platform, and managing the platform, building the platform, managing the platform, all of that also in terms of gift cove credits rather than money, conventional money. So again, it's all co-op credits or gift cove credits. Thank you, Bird. So with that, another component. I should write this down. So I was just mentioning. Okay, so the activists. Um, Actually, that's what I was mentioning. I was mentioning the methodology. Um, I think actually what I was about to say is I mentioned making the agreement with suppliers, making the agreement with the web hosting and programming, and additionally, and then also another critical component is making agreements with or make an agreement with an international shipper, a distributor of products, um, particularly one that facilitates international shipping and delivery of comparatively small orders, because the notion with this endeavor initially is facilitating comparatively modest purchases effectively from individual households rather than bulk freight shipping. So it's increasingly expensive in terms of the economies of scale. However, in terms of just the availability in the near term, in the immediate run, or the short term, that's what's increasingly plausible. So it's a matter of determining how to facilitate that in a proficient manner, and working with a shipper that's amenable to such. Kind of somewhat low volume, at least initially, yet with capacity for additional. I'm very um, for additional development. I don't want to say development growth. All that has are charged terms with connotations and blah. With further building, I'll say, and that might just be the new cliche. Um, anyway, so agreement with shipping basically is the other agreement with suppliers, agreement with web hosting, agreement with shippers. So with that, those are those are the initial components. Um, Additional is actually, I do this a little bit out of order. I'm going to continue to go a little bit out of order and then return to what I should have said at the beginning. Um, so with those agreements with the suppliers, the web hosting, and the shippers, essentially, there may be yeah, we'll get to that in a minute. So with those in place, the consideration is approaching artists, those artists that I just mentioned about the music, film, additionally, and establishing additional agreements, perhaps monthly contracts, and additionally, for works to contribute to the platform, particularly to give it whatever condescending term or non-condescending term can be considered like I'm thinking of just corny terms that are also condescending. So it's one thing to be corny, but to be corny and condescending that's a faux pas. So, but anyways, to give to give the site some not substance, but um, vibrancy. Perhaps that's the best word I can think of. So, anyways, much like the whole television industry is just a big commercial, and how many platforms on YouTube are coming together. The idea is not for this to become a commercial because again, it's other than about making money. It's just a matter of part of the culture of this endeavor involves culture itself, and so, anyways, it should be unnecessary to explain the logic for including artists. Artists go hand in hand, particularly conscientious artists go hand in hand with activists. And actually, ironically, interestingly enough, I mean, um, as big as activism seems to be these days, and over the years, um, there seems to be very few. There seems to be very few economic components to activism. It's all about policy and changing the system and advocacy and lobbying without actually getting into the economics. There are co-ops, there are certain projects in development that, but it's like once that economic component gets into it, which is necessary and just kind of avoid it. I'm going on spiel. Anyways, it's appropriate to include the economics with the activism with the artistry. So that's it. Agreements with artists for contributions of works to include on the platform. These works these agreements may include exclusivity for the platform. It may just be a showcase for works that the artists are sharing on other platforms. So there's open-ended flexibility regarding these agreements. And again, it might be a monthly contract or monthly agreement to provide a certain number of works in that period. Otherwise, I intend to get into the methodology of compensation eventually. So the idea for the moment in this methodology, description of methodology, is simply establishing agreements with artists to contribute works to share on the platform as within that component of the platform. So there's that. Well, one other thing to include within that is that rather than just having like an open-ended kind of, hey, give us your works, or rather than um, perhaps promising some type of percentage of uh, membership fees or something like that. The intention is to negotiate fixed contracts for a certain period based on hours of work. Or excuse me, that's the intention. But what I'm supposed to say at the moment is the intention is to establish agreements for again co-op credit or gift code credits, and the tangible benefit of those gift code credits existing through the agreements established with the suppliers, such that the artist can say, okay, this is other than simply some abstraction that has potential or some promise. There are actual agreements in place where these credits can be utilized directly to receive some type of tangible benefit that warrants sharing of this effort, this work. So that is the consideration, is establishing those agreements with artists. Additionally, so this is actually the initial consideration. So, an initial step, even before approaching the suppliers, is actually building support with um, activist groups and advocacy groups, and establishing proficient credibility, buy-in, participation, support amongst particularly the activist groups that are intended in participating in the activist forum. So, but again, establishing certain credibility and participation, particularly amongst the respective constituencies um, of such groups and organizations. So, so that's essentially the initial consideration is doing that first. Uh, with that, and perhaps it's slightly lightweight amidst that, approaching suppliers and saying, "Hey, we have this collective that's interested in doing this platform. These are essential a market for your products, and so we would like for you to offer a number of your products in exchange for certain credits, gift code credits, and by getting included or by participating in this gift code platform, this is to um, the suppliers have additional um, um, connection with the respective constituencies of these activist groups, and so even the suppliers for the most part it can be expected that the majority of the suppliers are either local suppliers and growers that focus on only a specific product, and so there's benefit there, or are retailers, wholesalers, distributors that yes offer fair trade, kosher, halal, organic, vegan products, but also offer additional products that are other than that. So one of the benefits for the supplier is that uh, in participating in this Gift Cove marketplace and offering its products in exchange for Gift Cove credits, it also connects with constituencies that may be interested in some of the additional products that the suppliers offer. And with an increased incentive on the part of the constituents to patronize such suppliers because of the suppliers' involvement in a conscientious, ethic-based endeavor. So that's incentive for suppliers, and so that's a consideration. All right, so there's that. Um, so those are your initial steps. And again, it's other than making it big. It's other than and then getting billions of people necessarily. Um, it is a matter of conscientious, concentrated, um, and constant. So um, that is amidst the honesty, compassion, and modesty. So So there's that. Um, so when it comes to So, all right, into the methodology for compensation. So, for all the people who are, this is the standard. It's the standard for the standard rate of compensation. This is the standard rate for all people who work in terms of the administration of this endeavor, including myself and everybody else, um, as well as the standard method through valuing contracts and agreements with, excuse me, with web hosts and providers, programmers, with the artists, and additionally, the suppliers determines the price of the supplier's own products. So, and by price, I mean the Gift Cove credit price. Um, so the standard rate is cinco credits per hour. That is established through a number of methodologies. One, there's a consideration of what people actually need in terms of looking at the grain aspect of it, recognizing that a gift code credit is uno kilo of a composite of grains. So if we just look at kilo of composite of grains, cereals, how much does an individual need throughout the year to do that, and how much does a family need, and other than just need for personal consumption, but then also need in terms of establishing shelter, clothing, and additional expenses throughout the year. So when we get into all those additional considerations, it gets increasingly abstract in terms of value, but also what is need. So focusing initially on just the nutritional aspect, the consumption aspect of what actual hamon is needed. If you look at 5 kilos a grain in an hour, and you look at 40 hours per week, that is 200 kilos being provided in a week. And you look at 50 semanas, 50 weeks in a year. So 50 multiplied by 200 is 10,000. I think yo pongo. Uh, doing a language that's comparatively new to me is somewhat difficult with my mathematics. So I have to just confirm that. So yeah, 10,000. So that equals 10,000 kilos, 10 million or 10,000 kilograms of grain. Um, so that's plenty for an individual to live off of. And so that's a standard rate. That's plenty for an individual to live off. If you imagine, first of all, you can imagine how much a kilo of grain is. A kilo of grain, let's see. To look at it in additional forms of measurement, you can estimate 1 cup of rice or 1 cup of grain or cereal equaling about a quarter kilo, maybe even a fifth of a kilo. And so that's uno cup of dry grain, dry cereal. And so so that would be 4 cups, cuatro cups, let's say 5 cups per kilo. Um, so a person can effectively live off of a few cups of grain a day. Let's say, let's be generous and say 20 cups per week. So that would be 40, that would be 4 kilos. That's a lot. But being generous, effectively, 4 kilos per week. So, again, being generous, 4 kilos per week. So you multiply that by 50 weeks per year. That's 200 kilos of grain. So I abstain from doing the research on this. This is just basically off personal experience. So I'm a comparatively big dude. I do it for a while, so obviously it's beneficial to have a balanced diet and everything else. However, this is just a general estimation, general conceptual development. So 200 kilos per year to live off of. So a person receiving 10,000 kilos for full-time employment and needing 200 kilos of grain just to sustain oneself nutritionally, effectively, that leaves 9,800 kilos of grain to cover additional, to trade, to barter, and essentially credits in this term at this point, to utilize for other purposes. So that is uno consideration. So that's one premise for how we arrive at the number of 5 kilos, or excuse me, 5 credits per hour as a standard rate of compensation. Additionally, if you look at it another way, we can look at the aggregate amount of arable, and then these are specific terms, so I should be appropriate. If you look at the aggregate amount of land that is currently available to utilize for agriculture, other than potential land like forest, because let's build up the forest, but just what's being utilized at the moment and what exists at the moment, according to our information, there is about, if you look at the aggregate amount of land that's being utilized for cultivation of grains, or for cultivation of all plant agriculture, as well as livestock grazing, and additionally, if you look at all the land, there's a very generally, there's about there's a few billion hectares of land throughout the earth utilized for agriculture, utilized, available for agriculture. But anyways, there's that actuality. So that, again, the figure is it's in the Dose figure, a single billion figure, but it's up there. It's almost into the double billion figures. So I think that would be trece. So anyways, the point being that there's about as much, there's enough land for there to be uno hectare for uno individual, 1 hectare for uno hectare for each individual in humanity. So estimating again about 7 billion people, and there being thereabouts the same number of hectares of land available and being utilized for, and or being utilized for agriculture. So if we look at just the terms of like if all the land was distributed exactly equally amongst all individuals, there is approximately, just generally approximately, nearly enough uh, land for there to be uno hectare for each individual. So that, taking that into consideration, then the estimation, again, generally, um, is that uno hectare of land in a year, on average, yields. Obviously, different land yields different, has different yields and everything else. So on average, generally, very generally, um, uno hectare of land in a year provides generally dos a tres uh, tons of grain. So again, different grains have different yields. Rice yields about cuatro a cinco tons per year. Wheat provides around dos mil or dos tons, but that's basically the average. So I think that was it. I do the research on that a lot lightweight and got it from the UN. I think it was the Food and Agriculture Organization. So those are the general numbers that I seem to recall without referencing it at this point. People can look that up as well. Just simple Google. So then, wow, all right. So on average, let's say tres tons. So that means that if all the land were distributed fairly equally to each individual and utilized for the purposes of cultivating grain, then each individual could expect effectively tres thereabouts tons of grain, which is tres mil kilos. So, and actually, it might be, if you look at it, I mean, it could actually be a little bit higher than that, but just for the sake of simplicity and honesty, leave it at that. So, if you divide that by that original dos mil hours that I mentioned being the rate of full-time employment for a year, standard, at least on Turtle Island, but also throughout much of Western civilization, dos mil hours in a year divided by about tres mil kilos equals about 1.5 kilos per hour. So if we equate that to credits, that would be 1.5 credits per hour. So that's basically that would be like the extremely equal standard of compensation in such an endeavor. So that being said, obviously, when we look at the aggregate population of humanity, everybody abstains from working full time. They're children. The vast majority of the human population are children and people and youth, children and youth. So that's a large percentage of the population, and children and youth that abstain from working and that is beneficial to abstain from working, being in school and additionally. So amidst additional adjustments and things like that, we can look at and we can better recognize that cinco kilo or cinco credits per hour is a comparatively fair rate of compensation. And that's for adults. That's for adult workers. So okay, I'm getting into it. So this is the general policy. So cinco credits per hour. That's the standard rate. Whenever having a contract with other the artist, and additionally, rather than valuing the product itself in terms of the perceived value of the product, when the Gift Cove endeavor makes an agreement of compensation to others, the agreement is based upon the estimated number of hours involved in providing that product. So that is the standard for the people who work directly in facilitating Gift Cove and doing things to administratively to facilitate the Gift Cove endeavor and platform, as well as agreements with artists and additional the web hosting, and additionally and identifying what the actual hourly contribution is of individuals for the service or product that's being provided to the Gift Cove. So that's the standard rate of compensation. So there are a few additional details that I intend to get into, and that's we gotten through the bulk of it at this point. So additional details. So what is the age of adulthood to determine? Well, first of all, so cinco credits per hour is the standard rate for all adults. Otherwise, for juniors, essentially, and without intending to be condescending, juniors actually it's a respectable term. So we are all juniors at one point previously, or even today at the moment. So the junior rate is tres credits per hour, recognizing that adults have additional responsibilities and needs compared to youth, and so adults have additional needs, adults have additional responsibilities, and so it warrants having additional compensation and a distinction of compensation. And this is throughout adulthood, from age, well, from the designated age of adulthood all the way through retirement, and additionally. So all right. So the adult rate is until there's it's continuous. That's the adult rate of compensation stays the same once a person reaches that age, that designated age. So a 60-year-old, a 60-year-old is making the same as a 30-year-old. There are other benefits of seniority that are intrinsically involved that abstain from equating or necessarily that exist beyond just the standard rate of compensation. So it's primarily based upon a needs. And so that's what adult make. That's the standard rate for adults. Juniors have less responsibility, less needs, and thus have a lower standard rate of compensation. Additionally, when an adult becomes a spouse and has a child, that adult receives additional credit per hour for that child to cover to help with the cost of the child. And if the couple has those children, then it's those credits, and then any additional children after that, probably either at a maximum of half a credit per additional child, and that's that's to be determined. So a parent, a married father with those children receives 7 credits per hour. Again, recognizing the additional needs and responsibilities. So, what's the age of adulthood? For men, it is 25, 25. For women, it is 20. So actually, women are able to earn a higher rate of compensation at an earlier age compared to men. And there are a number of reasons for this. One is the consideration of, to be honest, the consideration is particularly pertaining to, excuse me, having difficulty communicating at the moment. The basic idea is that recognizing the distinction regarding the rate of personal development, and how this is distinct between men and women generally, particularly considering the prospect of marriage, recognizing that men tend to marry at a later age than women, and including also into consideration of the reproductive development of respectively of men and women, again generally, and so the notion of adulthood, or the concept of adulthood in terms of identifying an appropriate rate of compensation, particularly pertains to the responsibilities that come with adulthood. Those are responsibilities including marriage and having children. So the consideration is to encourage men to be increasingly prepared for such responsibilities, and to make due preparation, to abstain from being married too early without being duly prepared, and so rather than being significantly concerned with being married and having and starting a family at an earlier age, the consideration is providing an additional incentive for investing within the preparation for such, and proceeding according from that. And the same principle applies to women. It just is the conditions are different for women than for men. So women again generally experience that process of development at an earlier age than men generally. So that's the general consideration and rationale. So adult rate for women is 20 years, and the adult age for women is 20 years, and the adult age for men is 25 years. That's the general designation at this point. So similarly, I mentioned that when a parent has a child, that parent receiving an additional credit for that child, additional credit in the rate of compensation for that parent. So obviously, when a child reaches a certain age, it's less appropriate for the parent to continue receiving a credit for that child. So and the term in settler society here on Turtle Island is dependent. How many dependents does a family have, or does a married couple have? and that term dependent being utilized for the determination of taxation and tax credits. So this is a different concept, but it's or a different context, though the concept is similar. So at what age does an adult or does a parent at what age does an adult child become independent from the to qualify as an additional credit for the parent, that adult child's parent? Basically, so for men the age is 30. For women the age is 25. There's additional rationale for that as well. One consideration, again, is incentive well, one is allowing adults or allowing children even through adulthood to progress in developing one way or another, to become independent and self-sustaining, and it's an added cushion. So it's other than the age of adulthood for receiving or the adult rate of standard rate of compensation. There's a little bit of a cushion essentially, and so it's a little bit of pushing the child out of the nest kind of incentive, and so recognizing that there's an additional number of years that are added, single years, to the standard rate of to the respective designated adult age. So, and that's basically it. It can also be considered that there's also marriage implications involved with this as well. So, but there's that. Amidst this also, and this is a little bit detailed, but it provides, it's beneficial, I think, to keep for consideration in terms of the principles and the philosophy, the culture, the traditions that are involved in the endeavor as a whole. And essentially, I mean, there are economic implications within this as well. So an additional consideration amidst these details is that when an adult child begins working and receives compensation at the standard adult rate, then that child becomes independent, and thus the parent of that child abstains from receiving the additional credit for the parent's rately compensation, rately hourly or rate of compensation. So so at some point, and that, again, that gives an additional incentive because the parent only receives uno credit additionally for the child. However, the child in working from the junior rate to the adult rate receives 2 additional credits. So there's an intrinsic incentive for the adult to work as an adult and to be independent from the parents. So there's additional tangible distinction in compensation. So there's that incentive again. So those are some of the protocols regarding standard rate of compensation. And again, I mentioned the manner in which these rates apply to essentially all agreements made with GiftCove directly. Again, recognizing that suppliers working directly with the consumers, the purchasers, establish the supplier's own rates of standard own prices for the product. So that's essentially between the supplier and the buyer. However, for the GiftCove endeavor itself, when contracting and making agreements with other entities, individuals, and organizations, there is the utilization of the standard rate. So there's that. as I articulate this, the thought occurs of, well, what about if somebody retires or if somebody becomes injured, or something like that? So these are some additional details. Well, first, before saying that, uh, what about people who abstain from working? Well, and this is gift cove at this point that we're talking about. But like I say, this has additional implications societally, at the societal level, um, because obviously there are certain isms, socialism, capitalism, and additionally that are involved in my articulation of this endeavor. So going a little bit further on that riffing, so to speak. Um, there's a consideration for people on welfare. What if, well actually, even within the gift cove component, welfare is less applicable, because welfare is generally, I'll deal with welfare, then I'll deal with retirement and injury, and disability. So, or no, I'll say disability. So, in terms of welfare, the consideration is providing uno credit per hour for people on welfare. Zero qualifications. I mean, there's zero like stipulations, or I mean, just a person is living, a person receives a credit an hour. So uh, again, that's dos mil credits a year, just because that's the standard rate, standard number of hours. So it's based on that. So that's how many a person again receives. Again, um, recognizing that, I mentioned before the very gross estimation and general estimation of the nutritional necessity of there being 2,000, or excuse me, 200 dosciente kilos of grain per year. So dos mil credits covers that. And obviously amidst the additional needs, again, in a societal consideration, there's a consideration of there being other non-monetary provisions like shelter and clothing, and additionally that are provided to individuals. So those are something additionally. But in terms of disposable income for individuals needing welfare, that's a consideration. Um, so there's that. Again, that's a little bit beyond the scope, the immediate scope, particularly, especially the near term scope of Gift Cove. But in terms of the philosophical, ideological approach of this being a conscientious and principled and ethic based endeavor, there's a consideration of being able to provide that consideration. So there's that. For people who are retired, and disability, injured, something happens, and are unable to work, unable to maintain an hourly, um, to work hourly to receive that standard rate. What are the rates of compensation? So, to be honest, this is something I just considered as I articulate this at the moment, and my initial consideration is for individuals retirement to also receive, and to refer to it as the junior rate is condescending when referring to elders. So, but perhaps the retirement rate of tres co-op credits per hour, recognizing that elders have less um, responsibility directly for supporting family. The children, elders tend to be adults and self-sustaining and independent, so there's less concern. And so again, there's less of a necessity. And here within Settler Society of Turtle Island, there is a certain expectation of elders in retirement being an incentive, and people like not living it up, but people earning. The standard methodology is that of seniority. As a person works for numbers of years, um, much of employment occupations being the motivation for such employment being compensation based. So with along those lines, as a person attains seniority, that person attaining additional amount of compensation as motivation for staying with the organization or staying in the occupation and continuing to provide that service. So by the point an individual retires, often the rate of compensation or the rate of compensation, support, contribution to a retired individual is based upon usually the rate that the person earns upon the age of retirement. So it tends to be up there. So again, it follows the logic of that paradigm. However, this is a different paradigm, and thus it's less applicable. The motivation is other than monetary. The motivation is providing service. The monetary aspect of it, the credit aspect of it, the compensation components aspect of it is predicated upon generally need and comfort as well. So because of that, the consideration is that our respected elders, our elders who we respect, have less of a need in terms of, again, the responsibilities and people depending on such individuals. And so because of that, it is very important to provide and ensure that our elders are comfortable and have adequate provisions, though it's just less of a need. So anyways, that's the thought, is tres credits per hour, the retirement rate, standard retirement rate. And then same thing for people on disability. Yeah, so there's that. Haha. So there's another big component to this as well. So I mentioned retirement. Someone receiving disability, or somebody being injured or becoming disabled, or becoming unable to work, in conditions that are different from the standard welfare conditions, individuals receiving tres credits per hour. So there's that. And again, that's something just recently considered. That being said, this is another consideration. Okay. So I mentioned that all arrangements directly involving our gift cove being based upon hourly contribution. So the basic protocol for gift cove endeavor is to be simple. Investment. First of all, zero debt. There's zero debt. There's zero loaning. There is zero issuing of loans. There's zero taking on loans. Zero debt with the gift cove, with the gift cove endeavor. However, there is propensity for investment. There is much of the compensation methodology that I described may be perceived as socialism, even communism. So it is what it is. Um, there is also a capitalist characteristic to the endeavor as well. It is possible for people to invest and to earn some dividends from the investment. I mentioned before the absence of a revenue sharing arrangement with artists, as is typical with other social networking platforms. Um, so that holds. However, there is propensity. Again, all of this is in Gift Cove credit. So again, zero money. Um, Yet there is the propensity for individuals and organizations to invest in Gift Cove in one way or another, whether that's through offering web hosting or whether that's through um, uh, uh, offering products or services or something else to contribute to the development that warrants a certain having a share in the endeavor itself. Um, then uh, there's propensity for that. There's a qualification though. There's a requirement. A prerequisite. That qualification, that requirement, that prerequisite is that any such individual, put it this way, all individuals who make an investment in Gift Cove and receive a dividend from such an investment. Any individual who makes an investment in Gift Cove has to be a signee, a signatory of the trust compact. So any individual who receives a dividend from such an investment has to be a signatory of the trust compact. Period. So basically, the only way at the moment, the basic ways for people to earn uh, to gain a tangible benefit. The only methodologies of compensation of co-op credits are through hourly rate of a contribution or service, the price that a person determines for a product on the marketplace, and through investment. People making contributions to the marketplace determine the prices oneself. That's the market determination. Hourly rate of compensation, that's comparatively organizationally determined. There's a standard rate for everybody. Investments, a person has to be a signee of the trust compact. So that may seem self-serving, and that may seem odd. People may say, oh, that's where the greed component is. That's where the selfishness comes in. That's exactly why people have to, that's why there's the requirement of the trust compact, because within the trust compact, and in signing the trust compact, an individual is agreeing to live by certain principles, and that include modesty, honesty, compassion, responsibility, and additionally. So it's essentially a safeguard from the greed and from the selfishness that typically comes with capitalism. So and it's other than even just like benevolent capitalism. It's simply, and I have difficulty even referring to it as capitalism, but I recognize how people can perceive it as similarly as such. It is a safeguard. It is other than a fail safe. However, it recognizes that it is engaging people where people exist, and where conditions exist, and recognizing that there is certain legitimacy within the methodology, and so it is incorporated. It is included within the aggregate conditions and methodology of this gift cove endeavor. So again, our trust compact is intrinsically involved with our global federation, our villages, our Wowium Kavitkahik. So uh, it should require a little explanation and justification. So it is what it is. So there it is. So that being said, one other component to include, and I've gone on. I'm at this for 2 hours at this point. So, and I was planning on only do this for less than an hour. That being said, that's pretty much the gift cove endeavor, and I guess it's appropriate for it to get out there in the ether. And I've shared this in other forum as well, particularly with our UNI village. I'm just going over my previous notes to see if there's anything else I should. Insurance. So obviously, one of the big issues with shipping, particularly internationally, is the terms of trade or terms of freight. I guess is one way of describing it, but within that, the consideration is liability. What if amidst the consideration of something getting damaged, something getting stolen, something getting lost, responsibility, who covers that? And if everything is based on alternative currency, then how are people held accountable for that? So yes, everything is still maintained in so everything is within the alternative currency in terms of costs and compensation. So there's a consideration of including a all right. So so everything is conducted in the credits in the alternative currency, even amidst I'm trying to think of the order to say this. Even amidst lost, damaged, stolen items and disagreements, settlements are made within the terms of credits rather than a monetary or a conventional currency. So that being said, there are a couple of additional items that are appropriate to articulate. One, again, is that disputes are settled in-house amongst our gift cove endeavor. Disputes between exchangees or between buyers and sellers, and additionally are conducted in-house. How about truth and reconciliation, or within the truth and reconciliation? The mechanics of that's something in the works to be determined, but in-house. And again, all settlements are all terms of settlements are in gift cove credits as well. So there is the consideration of having an effective insurance. So even there's an absence of an insurance policy. So what about when people are amidst the prospect of shipping in huge numbers, bulk amounts? It's appropriate to have some type of assurance amidst any kind of damages or natural disasters or whatever. Assurances for things. So one of the considerations is including an assurance aspect to the Gift Cove endeavor, that essentially a fund of credits that goes towards compensating individuals who experience certain loss that is difficult to address through other means. So again, because particularly, well, the consideration is that in doing shipping, often there are certain requirements that governments have to allow products to pass through the respective land, the territory of such governments. And one of those requirements, well, one is the identification of the valuation of the products being delivered. So the answer to that is $0 or zero monetary currency. The valuation is in terms of Gift Cove credits. So in terms of taxation, and additionally, when it comes to other governments, because the product has zero monetary value, there's zero taxation. Conceptually, I mean, that's that. I'm sure there's legal argumentation for that, but that's essentially where we're coming from. So then amidst anything being lost, stolen, damaged, how does an individual get remunerated or compensated for that? Again, assurance, establishing an assurance fund within the Goa Gift Cove endeavor to cover such costs that exist beyond a malfeasance or negligence on the part of any individual involved in that transaction or exchange. So that provides additional consideration about what about individuals that are involved. What if somebody outside of the Gift Cove endeavor causes something to that effect? Then how does that's relevant. That's a little bit detailed and a little bit further down the road. However, there are methodologies and their methodologies for facilitating such reconciliation, including cooperation with additional legal entities to facilitate an appropriate resolution to such things. A main consideration to respond to that concern about an outsider causing some type of disruption. All the participants in an exchange, the shipping, the supplier, the buyer, in some are already participating in the Gift Cove, and so have some type of buy-in to the alternative currency. So there's that. Amidst an outsider kind of delving in and causing disruption, then it becomes actually a matter of diplomacy at that point with the legal entity with which that individual or organization maintains official citizenship, because it becomes an international incident at that point. So there are methodologies for that type of resolution. So there's that. I mentioned having assurance for events that exist beyond a discerned malfeasance or negligence or other culpability of individuals or organizations involved in a transaction. An additional consideration with that, well, that brings up the topic of tax. So first off the bat, there's the consideration of including a 10% effectively a tax or fee for all transactions. There it is. Here comes the money. So obviously, again, it's in credits. It's in Gift Cove credits. And the idea with this flat 10% fee is actually, it comes from our respective traditions, providing a tithe and offering, zakat, tzedek, Caritas, even puja in a certain way. But the basic idea that providing a percentage of one's earnings and benefits for the benefit of others, for the welfare of others. So the idea with this flat 10% is that all those proceeds go towards providing the welfare and the retirement and the additional, well, maybe less retirement, because that's a little bit of a different component, but particularly the welfare for participants within our Gift Cove endeavor. I see fingers pointing, self-serving. So that's just the premise. Yes, percent. It is what it is. There's an absence of a fee at this point for participating in the Gift Cove, and so there's that. In addition to that, there's a consideration of charging in some way an additional percentage to cover administrative costs and retirement, the assurance for covering those anomalies that occur, and additionally, so what the actual number is, it might be another 10% for a total of viente. That seems a bit steep, but when people talk about socialism, you're talking about 50% taxation rate already. This is based on transactions. So there's the consideration of including a membership component, a membership fee component. Yet that seems to be too much of a hindrance on encouraging participation. So charging a tax may be perceived as a hindrance. Tax itself is a hindrance one way or another, but it's also a facilitator as well. So it's obviously a matter of whether people consider it to be valuable or beneficial enough. So anyways, that's the consideration. So 10% flat off the bat for the for welfare and for benevolent services, for societal well-being, and an additional percentage. The yawns are coming, so it's time to move on. If you got a yawn, it's time to move on. So 10% off the bat for social well-being, and then another perhaps 10% for administration of Gift Cove. That is where I do come in, as well as for assurance and an additional costs involved. So there's the potential for other ways of earning co-op credits. The other consideration is that Gift Cove issues credits. So anyways, that's a whole nother topic. But anyways, that's much of it at the moment. So I think I cover a lot of it already, and I probably go on over an hour just on Gift Cove. So honesty, compassion, modesty, conscientiousness, or conscientious, concentrated, and constant. That's what we're working with. So that is Gift Cove. Haha, that's just Gift Cove. All right. So I'm going to go quickly through the rest of this. Local village outreach. So regarding the agenda communication that I mentioned previously, identifying identifying the priorities in respective locations throughout our WOEM Kavitkhek. I actually do complete calls to all the amnesty offices in our respective locations, and I talk actually probably for the most part with representatives in those offices directly, and receive some communication regarding these priorities. I can share what these are. So I'll just go down the list. So for the Hong Kong office in China, for Amnesty, amidst our location in Shanghai, in the Shanghai area, I leave a voicemail. With the Bangkok office, um, the priority issues that are listed are the releasing of human rights defenders, refugee issues, as well as the stopping torture. Within the Mumbai office, I think it's Mumbai actually. I just have it India. There's the suggestion to forward an email. I forward an email. Actually, let me double check. I'm pretty sure I do. Yeah, I do. So I forwarded an email and I have yet to receive a response. In regards to the Arabian Peninsula, Air Peninsula, I talked with the representative who is actually based elsewhere, but is charged with the responsibility for that region. That individual communicates the issues, the priority issues of the um, the uh, the violence that's being conducted in Yemen, essentially the warfare, the death penalty issue of expression, and then also human rights defenders. Um, then in Kubenhauen, I speak with an individual there who I guess the connection there's difficulty in the connection, the phone connection, and so the individual solicits forwarding an email. I do so and have yet to receive a response. In Roma, I also speak with somebody directly, and again, solicitation for sending an email. I do send an email, and I actually receive a response. All right, and in that response, there is actually the response just includes a link to the annual report for that region for Italia. So I'm going to read the headlines. There are a number of headlines in that report for that region. So I'm just going to say that the top issue is also refugees and migrants' rights. So that's the message that's communicated. And I contact the East Africa office and I leave a voicemail. I contact the Accra office and I speak with a representative there who lists a number of issues, priority issues. One is the focus on the death penalty, human rights education, torture, the issue of extraction, the extraction industry, and the malfeasance, the transgressions that are being conducted amidst the extraction of resources or materials from the region. So that's a concern. Also, the well-being of women is a concern. Trafficking is a concern, and the term I think that is utilized is streetism, but basically the welfare of children and particularly conditions on the street and children on the street. So those are some of the issues that are included. Israel, I leave a voicemail. And amongst the land of the Guarani in Brazil, I speak with an individual in the office, and yes. So the individual describes issues of public security, human rights defenders, refugees, arms control, um, organizational growth for Amnesty. Um, those are some of the issues that are articulated. I also, the individual also actually, um, the individual solicits me to send an email, which I do. And the individual also responds to the email and forwards it additionally within the organization. Um, Also referencing the annual report of Amnesty um, and the issues that I just mentioned. Um, So yeah, all right. So that's Guarani in the Brazil, and then in the land of the Mayan in Mexico, I do speak with an individual in the office, and the issues that are addressed are that are described include um, violence against women, missing people, and journalists. Um, I mean, within the land of the Oleon, in Oakland or Berkeley, well, the office is in Oakland. I leave a voicemail, and then in here in the Cuyahoga, the region of Cuyahoga, or the region of um, this region surrounding our Cuyahoga area, I speak with an individual in the office here in the Midwest of Turtle Island, and the issues that are identified are gun violence, refugees, and human rights defenders. So. Those are the issues that are identified within this agenda endeavor, and so at this point, the consideration is compiling that into a prioritization, deliberating over it, and identifying amidst those issues um, uh, an order. I mean, obviously, some of these issues are shared issues amongst the different offices. Some of these issues are directly derived from the international campaigns and agenda of Amnesty International specifically, particularly recognizing the specific focus of Amnesty International as kind of an advocacy organization rather than necessarily as um, uh, a facilitator organization. And by facilitator, I mean that, like, compared to like an Oxfam or someplace else, that, or even relief agency or something like that, where there's actually engagement. It's the focus of Amnesty International is increasingly, and this becomes increasingly apparent in through this project. The focus of Amnesty is towards advocating governments and advocating policy and advocating governmental action. And so in terms of engaging other organizations on the ground, other groups, and doing like cooperative type action between communities outside of advocating towards a government hierarchy. That seems to be other than Amnesty shtick. So it's appropriate to recognize the identified priorities accordingly, because these are priorities for Amnesty as a human rights advocacy agency towards government. So it focuses on government action rather than necessarily direct action. And I think it uses the term direct action. So for me to say that might seem somewhat dismissive or even disrespectful, and it's unintended, but it's just recognizing that the nature of Amnesty's work. So I share that as disclosure, or just being providing information. So that's that is the update regarding the agenda endeavor. That being said, additionally and similarly, why is this under local? Okay. Under local village outreach, also here in our UNI village, pertaining to our UNI village here in the Cuyahoga area, I also reach out directly to the Amnesty office. I think I mentioned this in the previous meeting. I reach out to the field office, or the administrative office that works with this region and this locality about involvement with Amnesty. And so we exchanged some correspondences over the past week or so, to the point of there being one of the representatives intending to visit here next week. We talk about, or we communicate about meeting. And so after that communication, I communicate my interest of involvement with Amnesty, and what interests I personally have, and that with which I'm involved. And I mentioned fair trade, vegan, organic. I mentioned an endeavor of village to village cooperation, and the communication, or the response that's communicated, is support for the endeavor, though it being outside the scope of Amnesty. So that's essentially where the communication stands at this point. What the implications are about following through with the intended meeting or whatever, I'm uncertain. So it is what it is. I'm letting it sit where it is, and focusing on these endeavors rather than pursuing directly further engagement with the Amnesty office at this point. I do intend to forward a correspondence to the Amnesty International Secretariat based in England, in London, regarding Amnesty International's regarding soliciting an official statement regarding the Trust Compact, and to see where Amnesty stands regarding the Trust Compact. And I intend to, and that's actually, I should probably include that. Yeah, that's probably. So I intend to get to that in a second. So I communicate all that, and that's where things stand with the regional field office here with Amnesty. So there's progression, there's a little bit of a pause, and but continuing progression. So that's where things stand. That being said, that kind of concludes this committee report. Though it's appropriate for me to revisit something regarding our trust compact. So I am intending, I will, God willing, send some correspondences out to different organizations with whom I am personally involved, or with whom I am personally contracting or cooperating in some way, and forwarding these organizations a solicitation to provide, for the organizations to provide an official statement regarding the Trust Compact. So it's other than a solicitation to sign on to the Trust Compact or to sanction or approve of the Trust Compact, but just to give a statement of what the organization thinks, stands regarding the Trust Compact. And this is essentially a litmus test to determine where I personally stand, as well as where our camp involved with the Trust Compact stands regarding these conventional organizations with whom I am in connection or interaction. And so and determining how to proceed accordingly, because that's part of the purpose of the Trust Compact, is to establish a certain foundation of ethics and understanding through which cooperation is strengthened and sustained. So It's a matter of getting actual with it. So that's what I'm doing. I'm gonna leave it at that. Those are the committee reports. Haha. Let's see if I can wrap this up. Wow, this might be a 3-hour joint. Ooh. All right. Anyways, so those are the committee reports. Wow, that I haven't even gotten to them. All right. Wow. All right. So that being said, there's an absence of old business. Haha. There's an absence of new business. Haha. Oi. I think Mega is actually supposed to be. Yeah. Actually, it should be here. Okay, that's better. All right, so we get to the Mega update. When it comes to the intergovernment organization rapprochement, that continues. I'm actually delayed at this point in conducting the weekly news brief for Mega and sharing that accordingly. However, even before that, I forwarded correspondence to a number of organizations, particularly within the community of people of African descent here on Turtle Island, regarding providing a suggestion, a recommendation, a solicitation, even for the organizations to approach the African Union, as well as the Organization of American States, with tres considerations. Uno consideration is for the collective of these organizations. I refer to it as the Niagara Movement. That's actually a reference to the NAACP, because the NAACP, which is basically like the grandfather of civil rights organizations here on Turtle Island, that from which all ethnic based civil rights organizations are predicated effectively. I mean, it establishes a model. So the NAACP begins over a century ago, particularly through the leadership of the historic prominent founder W.E.B. Du Bois. And it begins with a meeting in Niagara Falls. And it refers to itself as the Niagara Movement. It eventually takes on the name of the NAACP, and then becomes prominent during the period about 50 years ago, with some Supreme Court, with a Supreme Court case and some additional civil rights, the whole emergence of the civil rights movement. It's a stalwart within that. So in the proceeding years from that point, it becomes rather accommodationist and assimilationist, and so it gets standing and gets recognition, and rises in prominence significantly and is respected in many ways. Yet, as the years continue, well, I'm saying from casting shade, but it is appropriate for me to recognize the criticism regarding the NAACP, in that its relevance, or the lack thereof, in addressing the critical issues, and other than just addressing the critical issues, but doing so in a genuine and substantial manner, rather than as in a placating kind of self-serving manner. So self-serving in the sense of existing as an effective political machine that offers, that throws bigger scraps to its constituents, and does little to do societal change or community-wide change. So that's one of the concerns. However, all that being communicated, there's still relevance, and it's difficult to, even if only because it's difficult to identify any other organization that has the same amount of um, uh, uh, coalescing. There's a specific word I'm trying to think of. For lack of a better word, coalescing capability amongst people within the African community here in settler society in Turtle Island, particularly in this Northwest Quad. So for that reason, it has relevance. It has recognition. It has a history and a legacy, and so particularly internationally as well. So that's one of the things that its assimilationist approach does provide is certain recognition internationally, which is one of the reasons why it is addressed as the focal point of this as a focal recipient of this communication. So the correspondence is addressed to the Niagara movement, with the NAACP headed of the list of recipients. It's also included to additional institutions within which I am directly personally involved and affiliated in one way or another through the years. A number of universities, advocacy groups, and additionally. So again, the correspondence solicits tres considerations or tres actions effectively. Uno is for that effective collective, whether it's referred to as the Niagara movement, the NAACP, or otherwise, but that collective establishing an effectively an observer mission with the African Union as well as with the Organization of American States, per the protocols, the respective protocols of each of those intergovernmental organizations. There are organizations that are other than government organizations, that are other than multi or international or intergovernment organizations, that have some type of official partnership with the African Union as well, respectively with the African Union and or with the Organization of American States. So the consideration is for the community of people of African descent here on Turtle Island, having an institution, a direct institutional representation in each of those intergovernmental bodies, intergovernmental organizations. That's long due, and it's long due on the part of those organizations, the African Union and the Organization of American States. It's long due on the part of people of African descent here on Turtle Island to step up to the plate on the international basis and to get beyond the kind of plantation mentality of relying upon the national sovereignty and the national government for succor and for sustenance, and even and everything else. So getting beyond that paradigm and stepping onto the international stage as a community. And so there's a lot of challenge with that. There's a lot of suppression and dissuasion amongst national convention here on Turtle Island, a settler society Turtle Island, to dissuade people of African descent to have that interconnection, because that effectively unsettles the power balance or imbalance here in settler society on Turtle Island. So that's one factor. But then also, so that dissuasion, that discouragement, either explicit and oppressively, but often just through bribery and distraction towards in other directions and appeasement and indulgence, that has a corrupting factor within the community of people that are African descent, that get blinders and refuse to consider that prospect of connecting internationally, connecting beyond the protection and the provisions of national government. So that's one challenge. But the other challenge is also again, the domestic mentality of people of African descent that exists at the throughout the stratosphere of socioeconomic standing, whether it's people who are perceived as disenfranchised and materially impoverished, who may be unaware of it, who have lack of trust in the efficacy of such engagement, and have a preference towards increasingly simple and immediate experiences. It's also experienced all the way up. That same type of hesitancy and resistance is experienced at the amongst people of affluence who are very much effectively co-opted, or and these are obviously generalizations. It's just describing general conditions. So, but when amongst people who are materially affluent, and even educated, and have awareness of what's happening on the international stage or whatever, but are tied to an institution and tied to a salary or tied to some type of financial obligation or involvement that precludes that individual or organization from speaking or acting independently from the allegiances of that additional settler institution that's providing the material benefit, whether it's a salary, whether it's investment, whether it's some type of other institutional affiliation, whatever it is, there's a discouragement. So that's one reason. That's one reason why I provide this correspondence is to recognize that it's necessary for these organizations and individuals to step the game up and get into the international sphere in a direct, intentional, public, and substantial and proficient manner. So getting a seat at the table of the African Union as well as the Organization of American States, that's a modest step. That's very plausible. That's doable. And it's a long while coming. So that's numero uno. Numero dos is soliciting. This is a little bit bigger. This is a bit further. And this is at this point the onus is on the African Union and the Organization of American States. However, the consideration numero dos is soliciting these intergovernment organizations, the African Union and the Organization of American States, to issue a formal official apology for the involvement, the intrinsic involvement of each organization, respectively, in the transatlantic slave trade. Period. Obviously, the transatlantic slave trade happens officially a number of years ago, a number of centuries ago. However, and a lot of people say, "Oh, just let it in the past and forget about it." Okay, if that's the case, then forget about the money that you derive from that. Forget about the pictures of the people that you put on your currency that are involved in that. Forget about the land and all the titles that are derived from those same conditions. Let's forget about all of it, and let's deal with just today and a new paradigm, a new civilizational paradigm. If we're just going to forget about it, otherwise, it's appropriate to recognize what happens and how its continuing effect. So, an apology just for doing a wrong that you recognize is wrong, even if it's conducted by the predecessors and ancestors, it's appropriate, and there's a substantial precedent for this as well. So that's an initial consideration, is just getting an official apology. One, it's important to come from Africa and recognizing Africa's involvement in the slave trade, the betrayal, the complicity, the complacency, and the transgressions that are involved within that. Brothers selling out brothers. So that's uno, and that should be a given. So particularly considering how much people of African descent here on Turtle Island do in support of the African continent, through multiple campaigns on multiple issues, through decolonization, through today. So that's uno consideration of Africa stepping up and providing some support for people of African descent here on Turtle Island, here in the Western Hemisphere, and the African diaspora, and simply acknowledging the responsibility, its responsibility in the slave trade. You sold us out. So that's it. And it's other than a blame game or whatever. It's just, this is part of the reconciliation. So wow, this is a whole nother spiel, but there it is. So that's that. And I think a lot of people of African descent here on Turtle Island have difficulty doing that because the whole the whole rhetoric or scenario. I'm trying to think of a specific word. There's a specific word. Anyways, the whole rhetoric is against the white man and everything else. And obviously, yes, there's wrong there. However, in establishing that binary, there's refusal of recognizing that what Africans do, and it's other than hating on Africans, it's just recognizing that. Anyways, there's that. But the other thing is also the Organization of American States. So that includes settler governments. That includes all the settler governments of the Western Hemisphere that are predicated upon the blood, sweat, tears that are shed by African slaves that are transported through the transatlantic slave trade. So it's other than just Africans. Africans are included, but also it's also the settlers from the tips of Scandinavia through the bellows of Iberia and the Southwest Quad. So all of that. Apology. And so there are additional considerations and rationalizations for this. There's a consideration that African Union Organization of American States, it's a smaller stage compared to the United Nations, compared to even the United States directly and specifically. So it's a quieter stage. It's actually a bigger stage, but it's a quieter stage. It's a lesser. It has less notoriety and everything, so it's easier to conduct on such a stage. Additionally, it establishes a precedent. One, it's a gimme. It's a no brainer. And so it's difficult to argue against the principles involved. Often the rationalization is always difficult, and there's policy and there's protocols and there's implications, this, that, and the other. And one of those implications is reparations, and additionally, and that's part of the conversation. But at the moment, the idea is just apology and recognizing a wrong, and in that recognizing facilitating healing and reconciliation. So that's número dos. Número tres is establishing a birthright program for all descendants of African slaves to walk on African soil. And this existed within other contexts. I mean, obviously within Judaism and Israel, there's the birthright program. And so this is predicated similarly from that. So the idea is, again, connecting people of African descent, descendants of African slaves, with the culture, with the history, with the land, with the people, with the language, with the customs of Africa, and facilitating the healing through such, and providing those trips without cost. It can be a week-long, 2-week-long trip, and a program, an orientation and an introduction to the land, to the culture, to the people, and the prospects of that, the benefits of that in the long run, for the next 7 generations and beyond, are incalculable, are beyond calculation. So, and again, it rests things speak for itself. So those are the trust considerations that I send in that correspondence to the Niagara movement. There's yet to be a direct response. So that's one thing with Mega. And then again, the weekly news briefs continue, and there is the intention of also including news briefs from Amnesty International in our respective locations of William Kavitke, our Global Federation of Villages, with the news briefs from the IGOs that I share through the Mega modes of communication. So there's that. Haha, we're getting there. We're almost there. One other thing is, I mentioned before doing the this is another topic for Mega. honoring our ancestors and completing composition recently within the past week or so. I do that. I also do a recording of that. I record the major components of the ceremonies as well as the compositions for each of those aspects. So obviously this involves my personal ancestry, but my personal ancestry involves the human and the collective human ancestry. In some ways, increasingly direct, as with the affirming our ancestors ceremony, as well as the river streams poem, and additionally through the additional ceremonies for which I provide composition. So I do a recording of that here in our UNI village, and I post that on the Plurality platform, so that's available. Okay. So I just include that as a mega consideration. And then there's the continuing endeavors and initiatives regarding the global mixed census, as well as the International Declaration on the Rights of Mixed People. So those are continuing, though there's an absence of an update for that. And also the Mixed Remixed conference, still working to get there. I'm uncertain how much of a priority it is at this point. There's a certain amount of quietness on the communication front on a number of different amongst a number of different circles. So amidst that, and also amidst my concentration here in our UNI village, there's continuing deliberation and determination regarding the priority of my attendance at the Mixed Remix Festival, at least within the next year, the purposefulness of it and the value of that. So recognizing the costs that are involved within that. So that's one of the considerations at the moment as well. So that's what's happening with Mega Update. Next item on the agenda is local village briefs. This is going on long, but it is what it is. And at the moment, it's about 3 hours. Local village briefs. UNI village. So actually, there's little to speak of in terms of big events or big occurrences that happened within our UNI village within the past week. It is appropriate for me to communicate that I think I mentioned this before as well, that the circumstances with the police at the moment is comparatively copacetic. There's proficient interaction. So, period. That's the main thing to communicate. That being said, I mean, kind of like with any ceasefire, so to speak, there's continuing there's lingering kind of uncertainty, particularly considering recent developments. So that's a concern. There's a patrol. There's a squad car. There are squad cars that patrol regularly, and that's understandable. It's understandable. So, but just the presence. Obviously, some find comfort in that. Others are troubled by that, particularly given tactics and history of settler police, including here in this immediate vicinity. So, so that's a continuing circumstance. So, that being said, there is on a number of occasions in the past week, and I think also previously, where I mentioned the squad cars patrolling. There's also a foot patrol that is conducted in the village here as well. So again, challenging, but there is I'm trying to think of the appropriate term to utilize. Circumstances are copacetic amidst this. And I wave, I say hi. So I think my point for sharing this is that is for, to articulate the current experience of reading, each side reading each other. That's that side reading this side reading that side. And so in such diplomacy, there's always these intrinsic or these subtle indirect communications that are being made. And so it's a matter of trying to discern what actually is being communicated, what is intending to be communicated, what is actually intended that's unintended to be communicated. And additionally, so I say that because within the past week, again, there's a foot patrol, and I see the foot patrol before. And actually, the officer that I see before, I see him on a number of occasions. I see a number of officers on a number of occasions. Officer, and like I say, I say hi, and I'm genuine when I say hi. I love everybody. So I do disagree with guns, and so that's the issue. I do disagree with the settler law that the officers, the settler officers enforce. So that's an issue as well. But I love everybody, and I work towards finding middle or common ground with everybody. And it's other than me being fake. I mean, I'm communicating this. I communicated there. I'm other than confrontational. I'm as congenial as I can be, and as respectful as I can be, and respect or I expect the same in return, or I just expect the same. Period. So that being said, actually a number of weeks ago, a while ago, I see the one of the officers conducting a foot patrol, and it's interesting because as I'm sitting on one bench on one side of the block, and I see the officer walking past. And I'm assuming he might have been on the other side of the street, so we abstain from making contact on that. We abstain from talking with each other directly. So shortly thereafter, I go from that bench to another bench on the other side of the block. And as I'm walking towards that other bench on the other side of the block, I see the officer approaching on the other side of the sidewalk, walking in my direction. And as I do so, what's interesting is that the officer, he's walking casually, nonchalantly, calmly, just doing what he does. And he at this point, he might be about 100 meters away from me or so. And I'm sure he sees me and recognizes me, at least from just seeing me before. I'm fairly certain the officers have an idea who I am. I have a number of interactions with the officers before and throughout the year. So I'm also a different type of cat. I approach officers when I see them, and I provide the well ethos communications and additionally. So I'm fairly certain I have a certain amount of recognition amongst the precinct. So as I'm walking toward the second bench and he's about 100 meters away from me, I presume he sees maybe less than 100 meters, maybe about 50 meters actually, 50 meters away. Anyways, I'm sure he sees me. And as I approach maybe about 20 meters away, he actually stops walking in my direction, crosses the street, and then walks in the other direction. So an initial ego response would be whatever, and I'm saying for doing that, but I just observe what happens, and it's unusual. And so again, it's that reading of what's actually being communicated. Is there a concern, and should I be concerned about a concern, and this, that, and the other? So it's other than of like, oh yeah, I better walk the other way type of thing. It's like, what is this about? Because it seemed intentional, but in nonchalantly intentional. So anyways, that's what happens a few weeks ago or a while ago. So earlier this week, the same officer, this other police officer, is in the neighborhood again. And so again, I'm on the other side of the block, sitting, and the officer approaches, again walking a foot patrol, and there's a villager sitting on the benches about 10 meters away from me, and he has a conversation with the officer, and so I'm sitting there doing what I do at the moment. And then the officer finishes the conversation with the villager, next to me and continues walking towards my direction, and indeed passes me. I wave, I say hi, he says hi back. He continues walking on. That's it. Afterwards, the villager approaches me and says, "Hey, what's that about?" Asking about like the foot patrol. When does that start? And so I think he's trying to gauge me and seeing where I'm coming from. And so there's an added dynamic because he's a villager. And so I'm uncertain how much the villagers know about me, what about you and I village. Additionally, I abstain from putting it on blast. My interest is in meeting people directly and without agenda per se, just meeting villagers, because this is where we are at the moment. Obviously, I have intentions. There are intentions here, just as everybody has intentions one way or another. So when meeting people for the first time, we usually abstain from just putting everything out there. So I engage people genuinely and accordingly. So that being said, again, I'm uncertain how many of the villagers understand or know, are aware about what I am, what the politics that is shared with myself and with our UNI village. And additionally, I imagine some have certain awareness, some more, additionally others simply because of the nature of conversations. And additionally, so anyways, this villager, he's comparatively, I've seen before, but he's comparatively new to me. So he asks me what the police officer is about. And for the way he approaches me was like, this villager happens to be of an ethnicity that experiences that the ethnicity comparatively experiences certain difficulties with this other police here. So his first approach to me seems as though he asks the question very kind of plainly, but it's like the way he communicates it is as if it's soliciting some type of like F the police response from me. And maybe he's doing that intentionally to like provoke me to see what I'm going to say. Again, there's all this reading. And so it's dynamic at this point because it's involving citizens. So, but he's also an elder. Elders tend to be increasingly conservative and assimilated, at least at the mask level. We wear the mask. So, so he approaches me. He said, "Yo, when that start?" I'm like, I'm uncertain. So I respond in a casual, nonchalant response. And so he kind of maybe he picks up on that, and then he talks a little bit further, and he starts to communicate his appreciation for the patrols and the protection, and says something to that effect that we need security or something like that. So that's the spiel that he provides, and I provide a zero response. I consider giving my whole politics at that point because of the villagers' communication, and that spiel would be something to the effect of what I'm communicating at this point of like, I believe in law enforcement. I believe in the protection of villages and citizens, particularly of men of women and children. I disagree with settler society. I disagree with the settler law, and I also disagree with the utilization of guns. So I consider sharing that. However, I'm actually processing his communication and kind of reading where he's coming at. And so I just kind of give a nonchalant response without condoning or condemning. And actually, I'm actually on my way somewhere else at the moment. So I'm less inclined towards that's actually one reason why I abstain from giving my spiel at that point, because I have something else to do. And if I'm going to give my spiel or introduce my spiel, it's appropriate for me to commit to that and allow for there to be some conversation afterwards to like further communicate that and explain and converse about it. So at that moment, I have some other obligations. It's actually almost Shabbat, I think, at that point, and so I have some other things to tend to, and so my estimation is at least allowing for like 20-30 minutes to have that conversation to provide further explanation in such a context, because this is a diplomatic exchange at this point between our camp and his camp. So I calculate that I am precluded from committing myself to that conversation at that moment. So I abstain from giving my political spiel. So I provide just a basic nonchalant response, and I continue on. So That's one update that happens in our UNI village. I should also provide that an elder woman approaches me on a number of occasions this past week or so, as I'm playing out on the drums here on the near steps, and she's Russian, speaking Russian, and she's very kind, and obviously our exchange is comparatively modest in terms of the words exchanged. She shares some Russian, I share some Russian, I share some Russian. And so we're actually able to communicate effectively. I say Lyubov и мир, and I reach to my heart, and she understands what I'm saying, in my estimation, and she repeats it, and we continue on. So I actually see her twice that same day. So that's amusing. So that's appreciated. And actually, there's an elder woman who actually stops by and sits next to the bench to me as I'm playing the drum. She approaches me, asks if she can sit down, and as I'm playing the drum. So there's an intercultural exchange at that point as well. So and additionally, regarding the drum, again, on this past Friday, as I'm sitting on the bench on the other side, I play the drum on the near side of the block, because there's actually a considerable difference between the two sides of the block. On the near side, it's younger. There are additional buildings. There are younger people here, and so there's an increasing amount of activity. And so I play my drums here. And on the distant side of the block, there's a residential complex, a tower, where elders live, and so there's also an increased amount of open space, fewer buildings, so it's quieter, and the elders tend to walk along that sidewalk. So it's a different scene. And so on the near side, I play my drums there. That's where I live closer. That's where a lot of the activity is, and so my consideration is that the vibration is easier absorbed in those conditions, compared to the other side, or the distant side, where it's comparatively quiet. And they're elders that are from different cultures, that are accustomed to different norms. Some of those norms preferring something other than a drum beat. So I'm respectful of that. And so I tend to keep my playing of the drum towards the near side. That being said, on Friday, as I'm sitting there in the distant side, with having just played the drum on the near side, I have the drum with me, and another elder woman walks by, who is of African descent, and points out the drum, and I say I was playing it on the other side. She asked me about playing it there, and I say I was on the other side. She said, "Well, we can't hear you over here." And so I said, "Well, this is a quiet spot." So she said, "Well, we need to hear it too." So it's an interesting dynamic there as well. So those are some of the experiences that are had. And there are additional conversations that I maintain with villagers. I hang out, I post out in front of the building here on a couple of occasions as well. So there are some changes that happen in this region, in this vicinity, in our Cuyahoga area, as well as within the continental area. And so there's a quietness as those changes kind of settle in, and there are changes in multiple ways, regarding Native people particularly, but also regarding settler politics and additionally. And so there's a certain quietness. There are a number of conversations that have yet to be conducted, particularly to articulate people's experiences, people's conditions, where people stand amidst these fluctuations. So it's interesting to see how this comes about within the next few days, few weeks, and additionally. So those are some of the reports from our local village, our UNI village. So that being said, that concludes the business quote. Well, that's that. Going on to announcements. Within the past week, there's feasts within the Baha'i faith, and I have different reports. According to some reports, Guru Nanak Jayanti in the Sikh faith occurs recently within the past week, although according to additional reports, I'm informed that it is scheduled to occur within the next week. So I have to do some confirmation with that. But that being said, we're in the midst of the celebration of the birth of Guru Nanak within the Sikh faith. Coming up this week also is Juma within Islam, Shabbat within Judaism, Purnima within Hinduism, Upasada Day within Buddhism, and Sunday worship within Christianity. That brings us to, I'll put this on there as well. There's also the arrival of Thanksgiving within, I'm going to say, within human tradition. It's a settler custom that is actually woefully, well, it's a settler custom based on a woeful history that is admonished by Native people here on Turtle Island. So that's the basic sum up of Thanksgiving. That being said, it is appropriate to provide thanks, to provide appreciation. So Thanksgiving in and of itself is a beneficial endeavor, and it's appropriate for settlers to give thanks, just as is appropriate for everybody to give thanks. So that is appropriate. However, it's also appropriate to do it in a genuine manner, and genuine meaning that it's other than somebody knocking somebody over the head and stealing something from somebody and then providing thanks for that, because that's other than giving genuine thanks. Giving thanks is a matter of being in harmony with all individuals around oneself, and having appreciation for that, rather than just being appreciative for the nickels and dimes that are bargained or betrayed or beaten out of other individuals, and providing some type of temporal pleasure for oneself. So the idea is giving genuine thanks, and so that's the context. That's the spirit in which I share this announcement. That being said, that is scheduled in a few weeks. So actually, in about a little over 3 weeks. Yeah, I think. Dos weeks. Yeah, dos weeks. Yeah, dos weeks. So anyway, all right, there's that. We get to benevolent news. All right, so for benevolent news, I begin by a recitation of one of the compositions that I recently completed called River Streams. So I recite this a week ago, and it seems appropriate to share within our William Kibitkick meeting. So as part of the intercultural, interheritage, intergeographic experience of our Global Federation of Villages, William Kibitkick. This is the poem, River Streams. We are drawn from loving waters' gleams, souls deepened with Tao beyond dukkha themes, with many maven rhythms, harmonious of teams, a reservoir from river streams. Upon northern plains of east a tour, walking lengthy overlooked shore, on O Bienesi Lena Amor night beams, a reservoir from river streams. Samadhi plateaus bow past dynasties towards sun, with Fuji Liliokalani Tagalog Wurundjeri Islands. As Huang Yangtze Mekong character deems, a reservoir from river streams. Offering foundations of definitions, beliefs. Holy tributaries feed awakening plant leaves. Ganges Indus with healing neems, a reservoir from river streams. Modest trails from enormous hills, west towards inlet a vastness spills. Sir Amudarya, treasure trove supremes, a reservoir from river streams. Gardens of faith cradled along banks, sprouting prophets' scriptures, religions give thanks. Tigris, Euphrates, Jordan, fill Sephardims, Karims, a reservoir from river streams. Approaching from different sides into unity, Antiochnium marches, waltzes with glee. Danube and Volga join, as humbleness esteems, a reservoir from river streams. From alpines towards fjords, mighty, wide, its hands, grasp beyond possession of logs' ideal plans. Runland vegans offer plant-derived creams, a reservoir from river streams. Quiet with stories from eastern big lakes, feeding pharaohs, pyramids, and Exodus breaks. Fertile Nile roots, branching academes, a reservoir from river streams. Depositing empires past steepened cascades, holding Zims, Zambia, Zulus above royal baits. Zambezi welcomes home, echoing themes, a reservoir from river streams. In density bush, villagers visit, embracing continent, highland backbone exquisite. Congo currents move within a bard's dreams, a reservoir from river streams. Drum beats constant amidst delta tides. Timbuktu pages turn where independence decides. With Twi to Igbo greeting Hakeems, a reservoir from river streams. Ancient paths traveled amidst coca cashews, from conquistadors republicas revoluciones to Acajaba brews. Water for Guarani and Inca redeems, a reservoir from river streams. Big river supports home-carved canoes, rains collected from surrounding hill views. Yanomami agua, clearer than what seems, a reservoir from river streams. Parallel paths hold western big mountains, from stampede lands towards Aztecs, Mayans. On Navajo, Hopi grass, hospitality warmth teems, a reservoir from river streams. Turtle Island big mountains towards Big Water Pier, sequoias Tahoma stand on either side near. Trickles from Utes witness ever-changing regimes, a reservoir from river streams. From shared vicinity towards two sides of peaks, spring flowers emerge when yearly thaw speaks. Sleds of Eskimos, Inuits dwell with proximate extremes, a reservoir from river streams. Receiving journeys from continent's heart, feeding roots of maize, Manumin, where traditions start. Nourishing Seminoles, Tainos, Mississippi steams, a reservoir from river streams. From within and throughout Turtle Island big lakes, droplets surge past, expansive rapid takes. Amidst Algonquin, Iroquois, hints of divine schemes, a reservoir from river streams. We are drawn from loving waters' gleams, souls deepened with Tao beyond Dukophemes, with many maven rhythms, a harmonious of teams, a reservoir from river streams. It's other than emotion, it's fatigue. So, I'm at this for 3.5 hours, yo. Next item is Wealth Ethos chant. Again, I'm going to abstain from explaining wealth ethos. I do that before. It's intrinsically within our compact at this point. So I'm just going to sing it. I'm going to do it again. I'll just give it a brief translation for each term. Ahimsa, abstinence from violence. Ubuntu, I am because you are. Social justice. Veritas, truthfulness, honesty. Haya, modesty, particularly sexual ethics. Shu, reciprocity, golden rule. Maka, earth, nature, environmentalism. Huga, cozy, family togetherness. Samadhi, concentration, a timeout. Shema, to hear, the oneness of the universe, the oneness of God, the oneness that connects us, all of us. Shabono, community hut representing consensus building, community. And Narap, land, territory, signifying rightful, righteous stewardship. Those are the principles of what Athos according to the rendering of Asona Ashram. This is the chant. Ahimsa Umbutu Veritas Haya Shumako Huga Samadhi Shema Shabono Narap Ahimsa Umbutu Veritas Haya Shumako Huga Samadhi Shema Shabono Narap Ahimsa Umbutu Veritas Haya Shumako Huga Samadhi Shema Shabono Narap Ahimsa Umbutu Veritas Haya Shumako Huga Samadhi Shema Shabono Narap. And the next one is the World Peace Prayer Song. The different languages are all expressions of peace. Salam Shalom Wolakota Shanti Hewa Mir Paz Wa Benamani. May peace prevail throughout the earth for now and evermore. May our children grow up safely in a world without any war. A part of what makes a pole for peace, it stands up tall for our release. A world of kindness and unity, a part of what makes a pole for peace. Salam Shalom Wolakota Shanti Hewa Mir Paz Wa Benamani. We will all dance and celebrate with every nation and race, and together we will all create a world of beauty and grace. A part of what makes a pole for peace, it stands up tall for our release. A world of kindness and unity, a part of what makes a pole for peace. Salam Shalom Wolakota Shanti Hewa Mir Paz Wa Benamani. Salam Shalom Wolakota Shanti Hewa Mir Paz Wa Benamani. May peace prevail upon earth. Our next meeting is scheduled for next week on Day 9 of month 3 of year 123, after the commencement of the Parliament of World Religions, year 71, after the founding of the United Nations. Day 5 of the week and Day 3 of the full moon at 18 hour, Greenwich Mean Zone. So that being said, this is our benediction. May all beings be well. The hour is 15:47. Ha ha ha. Huh. It just changed, but I'm going to go with that. And our weekly meeting of our Woyam Kavitkahik Global Federation of Villages is officially adjourned. Namaste, assalamu alaikum, shalom, adios, zaijen. Te Chakaris, Asamudwo, Kele Ufred. Love and peace.